Scott, you've been to Russia. How did you find the differences in this part of society? You've just mentioned a little bit of what's going on in Russia and Witkov, the role of Witkov and his team to somehow make differences within the society. But how influential that could be for a Russian president? I'm talking about internally inside Russia.
How you mean? How could this be weaponized against Putin?
Yeah, exactly. How is that possible to weaponize that against Vladimir Putin?
You
Because we
get
know the system. The
let's say
system is so
let's say you're the governor of Novosibirsk Oblast region, your most powerful economic engine in Russia, and this opportunity that Witkov is dangling out there, that Dmitry is dangling out there, has the potential of giving you the ability to control contracts, control development, and suddenly you're looking at your future going, man, Vladimir Putin is 70 some odd years old. I'm 40s. I could be the next president of Russia. I could become the economic engine of Russia. I could be the guy that Putin turns to, and I could be the next president. And so I'm all excited about this. And now you've planted that thought in his head that he's relevant, that he's somebody, and begins talking to people, other people, including the FSB, the local FSB. They use them then to silence opposition, which they're doing right now. And it's not just Novosibirsk, but it's others.
Scott Ritter says this is how pressure can be used against Putin from inside Russia. You target powerful regional leaders with big economic incentives. Governors start thinking about their future. Putin is aging, and they could be next in line. Once that ambition is triggered, they feel important and start making moves. They build influence, talk to security services like the FSB, and shut down rivals. The goal isn't to attack Putin directly, but to stir ambition and rivalry within Russia's elite, creating internal tension around his rule.
The second you start talking about the development of Russian resources, the governors, the local government of the regions that have those resources have a vested interest in this possibility. Because a lot of that potential is dormant right now because Russia lacks the capacity to act on its development. If you're running the economy and you're saying, gosh, if we continue this war, we're going to have to transition to a war economy at some point in time. And that's going to impact markets that I've been making money off of, that all my friends are making money off of. It's going to require a tightening of the belt that's going to cause me to be diminished because right now I have a lot of influence because I'm the money person. I can make money happen. And suddenly I'm not anymore. All these people now start talking to each other. And, what happens is that, Vladimir Putin starts finding out that there's a shadow government.
Scott Ritter explains that once you talk about developing Russia's unused resources, regional governors and local elites suddenly have a stake in it. Right now, many of those resources are dormant because Russia lacks the capacity to develop them. But if the war drags on, Russia may shift to a full war economy. That means less profit, tighter controls, and weaker influence for the money elites. As their power shrinks, they start talking among themselves. And that's when Putin begins to notice something dangerous forming, a shadow power network inside the system.
There's people conspiring behind his back that maybe instructions he's given aren't being carried out to the full effect. Maybe the military starts questioning, his guidance, his leadership. This isn't happening now. I don't believe. I think Vladimir Putin still, has tremendous support, but this is what could happen. This is what the CIA is trying to make happen. It's been what the CIA has been trying to do ever since Vladimir Putin came into office. And they were successful with Navalny, Nemtsov. All these people were all CIA assets bought and paid for. But the Russians, through their foreign agent law, was able to shut down vectors of control, non-governmental organizations. So the only thing that's left in Russia today are these long-term assets that have been, that were bought back in the 90s by the CIA and MI6 that can be activated as necessary.
Scott Ritter says this is the long game. If elites start conspiring, Putin's orders may quietly stop being followed. Over time, even the military could begin to question his leadership. Ritter stresses this isn't happening now. Putin still has strong support. But he says this is what Western intelligence is trying to engineer. According to him, NGOs were shut down by Russia's foreign agent laws, so the only tools left are old intelligence assets planted decades ago, ready to be activated to create internal doubt and elite resistance from within the system.
But now you've created new potential, because if you're, just think about it, you're Kirill Dmitriev, and Vladimir Putin has tapped you now to be the guy interfacing with Witkoff. So you have a meeting, you meet in the Kremlin. Putin's like, yeah, this is good. So Dmitriev now meets with Russians and says, the spirit of Alaska is real. Let's talk about so next time Dmitriev comes in, we have a plan of action for the Arctic that we could put on the table to lure America in. And so now he goes up to the Arctic and gets all these people to plan. And once you start planning, it's like anything.
Scott Ritter says this is where new leverage gets created. Once Putin appoints someone like Kirill Dmitriev to talk directly with the Americans, that person gains influence. Dmitriev starts rallying regional and economic players, selling the idea that cooperation with the U.S. is real and profitable. They begin planning projects, especially in places like the Arctic. And Ritter's point is simple. The moment planning starts, expectations and ambitions grow. That process itself creates new power centers, new interests, and new internal pressure inside Russia's system.
You start planning a vacation, you start seeing the vacation in your mind. I'm already on the beach in Hawaii. I'm already playing golf. I'm already, and then suddenly be told, no, you're not going on vacation. It's like a big disappointment. I want to go on vacation. I planned the vacation. I'm spending that money as we speak. And that's what's happening. He creates these commissions, these planning groups that start planning the future of Russia. I mean, the whole stupid tunnel thing, there's not going to be a tunnel. It's never going to happen. But Dmitriev's like, oh, we're going to have this Siberian-Alaskan tunnel. No, you're not. And if you ever did, it's not to bring American wealth into Russia. It's to suck Russian resources out of Russia, because that's the only thing the United States understands. We don't care about Russia. We don't care about Russia. We don't care about Russia. We don't care about Russian companies. We don't care about the Russian bottom line. We don't care about anything about Russia. All we want is Russian resources coming to America on terms that are acceptable to us. That's what it's all about. That's what the spirit of Alaska is. But even then it's a lie, because that implies that we want some sort of legitimate economic interaction between the United States and Russia. We don't. We want to use the promise of legitimate economic interaction to create a fifth column to achieve our ultimate objective.
Scott Ritter uses a simple analogy. Planning creates belief. Once people start planning a future, projects, commissions, big ideas, they begin to mentally live in it. When that future is taken away, disappointment turns into resentment. Ritter says figures like Dmitriev sell grand visions, tunnels, Arctic deals, U.S. cooperation that will never happen. The real goal isn't partnership. It's dangling fake economic promises to pull Russian elites into dependency. According to Ritter, this is about using the illusion of cooperation to build a fifth column, not genuine U.S.-Russia economic relations.
And again, I'm just saying this as loud as I can. The United States has been seeking to remove Vladimir Putin from office since the moment Vladimir Putin became president. It's a 25-year process in place. Come on, guys. Joe Biden went to Moscow in March of 2011 and told the Russian people, the opposition, straight up, it's not a good idea for Vladimir Putin to come back and be president of the United States. That's not a good idea. It's not good for Putin. It's not good for Russia. Could you imagine Dmitry Medvedev coming to the United States, and having a meeting in New York City with a bunch of bankers and stuff? Hey, it's not a good idea for J.D. Vance to run for president. Not a good idea. Not good for J.D. And not good for America. We think that the person should be the person we pick. Our person. Americans would go, are you high? Get out of here. But Joe Biden did it in broad daylight because that's what we were doing. We were undermining Russia. We've been undermining him forever.
Scott Ritter makes his bluntest point here. He says the U.S. has tried to remove Vladimir Putin since day one. This isn't new. It's a 25-year strategy. He points to Joe Biden openly telling Russians in 2011 that Putin shouldn't return as president, calling it blatant interference. Ritter flips the scenario and says Americans would never accept that from Russia. His conclusion is simple. The U.S. has been openly undermining Russia for decades, and this pressure campaign against Putin has always been deliberate, not accidental.
We don't like Vladimir Putin. We don't want to work with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin represents everything that we hate. You see, we were happy in the 1990s when Russia was on its knees, crawling to us for crumbs. Oh, that made us so happy. And then Vladimir Putin taught Russia to stand up. We're like, whoa, what are you doing? Russia's not allowed to stand up. We won the Cold War. Get back down on your knees, Russia. Behave, heal. And Russia went, no, we're going to stand up. And then Putin taught them to love themselves because there was a period of time in the 90s where Russia stopped loving itself. Russia went, oh, we're so bad. We're so inferior. We have to do what the West tells us to do. We have to be like the West. We want to be like the West. We want all the West stuff. Make us like the West. Please, we'll do anything to be like the West. But now Putin went, hey, Russia's one of the great civilizations. Why don't you start being proud of being Russian?
Scott Ritter says the real issue is simple. The U.S. doesn't like Vladimir Putin because he ended Russia's weakness. In the 1990s, America was comfortable with a broken Russia, dependent and obedient. Putin changed that. He helped Russia stand back up and reject Western control. Ritter argues that Putin restored Russian self-respect, telling Russians to be proud of who they are instead of begging to be like the West. And that, he says, is unforgivable to Washington, because Russia was never supposed to rise again.
And the Russians looked around and went, yeah, we're pretty cool. And today the Russians are standing on their 2 feet, fully exercised, very proud of who they are. And we don't want this. We don't want to deal with Russia that is Russia. We want Russia to be defeated, supine, compliant, weak. We can't handle a Russia that stands on its own 2 feet and says we're proud of who we are, because the biggest threat Russia poses now is the fact that they don't want to be like us, because that's how we control the world. That's how American hegemony works. We convince the relevant societies that you're inferior, that the only way that you can get a seat at the table is to be like us. We did it in Iran. We're doing it in Iran. Come on, guys, all those fancy Western stores. Come on, Iranian women, because we know who runs Iran. It's the women, just like they run everything in the world. And you can get that nice dress, and you can wear this nice makeup at home, and you can do this, that, and the other thing. We can take you to London so you can go shopping and all that stuff. Just tell your husband, hey, those Ayatollahs, they got to go. And then the wife whispers in your honey, the Ayatollah's got to go. And then you get demonstration in the streets. That's a simplistic, comedic thing, but that's how it works.
Scott Ritter says today's Russia scares the West for one reason. It's confident and independent. Russians are proud of who they are and don't want to copy America. Ritter argues that U.S. power depends on convincing countries they're inferior and must become like us to matter. Russia rejecting that model breaks the system. That's why, he says, Washington prefers nations that are weak, compliant, and dependent, and why a self-confident Russia is seen as a threat even without firing a shot.
I mean, Russia should always hold the door open and say, if you want to accept Russia on Russian terms, Russia will be your friend. But I think the day of Russia waiting for the West to come on over is over. Shut the damn door. Make us knock. Don't hold the door open for us. Shut the door. Seal yourselves off. We're your enemy. And most people are trying to destroy you. They act, in regards to Russia, not out of, a desire for friendship, but desire to use friendship as a means of leveraging poisonous systems inside your society to bring it down. That's a sad statement, but it's the truth under the Trump administration. Whether we can change that, I don't know. But I'm very depressed right now because I just spent a lot of time traveling to Russia promoting the concept of U.S.-Russian relations. And I'm an honest person. I honestly believed in that. I believed in that when I was there in November, although it was becoming harder and harder to do that. But today, after what my government has done, at the way the American people are responding to the actions of my government, America doesn't want to be friends with Russia. We don't know how to be friends with Russia. All we want to do is destroy Russia. And Russia needs to understand that and wake up to that reality.
Scott Ritter ends on a stark warning. He says Russia should stop waiting for Western friendship and shut the door. Any friendship offered by the U.S., he argues, is really a tool to penetrate and weaken Russian society from the inside. Ritter admits he once believed in U.S.-Russia cooperation, but says recent actions prove America doesn't want partnership. It wants domination. His message is blunt. Russia must accept that the U.S. sees it as an enemy and act accordingly.